Satellite-powered internet is no longer science fiction. It's reshaping how industries monitor, protect, and respond in the most remote corners of the world. From detecting wildfires to managing utilities and even enabling AI-driven decisions at the edge, satellite connectivity is unlocking a new era of possibility. Ian Itz, Executive Director at Iridium Communications, joined me to talk about the innovations making it all possible and why 2025 could be a flipping point for satellite adoption. This is a bonus episode of The Business of Tech. Support for the show comes from ScalePad. Ever feel like you're doing all the work, but no one sees it? That's the reality for a lot of MSPs. You're putting out fires, chasing spreadsheets, juggling client requests. But when it's time to show value, crickets. That's where ScalePad comes in. Trusted by over 10,000 MSPs, ScalePad solutions help you turn invisible effort into visible impact, pulling together the tools you already use, from reporting, quoting, compliance, and asset planning, into one easy platform. So instead of chasing details, you're leading smarter conversations. Because doing great work is one thing, getting credit for it, that's where the real business growth happens. ScalePad helps you show value, build client trust, and lead with confidence. Learn more at scalepad.com/Dave. Well, Ian, welcome to the show.
Dave, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you because you're in one of those areas of technology that just sounds cool, right? We're talking about satellite communications. So by very nature of talking, we're already in the realm of cool. Tell me a little bit about what that means, like practically in the field of what you do.
Yeah, so what we do primarily is we serve customers kind of globally that need connectivity outside of cellular coverage, right? So we develop a variety of small transceivers that customers integrate into a variety of IoT applications. And we give them service across the globe. We're a ubiquitous network, and so we cover every corner of the globe. And that's primarily what we do, is we're providing core technology for IoT developers.
Now, satellite continues to be one of those areas that's actually kind of talked about a lot. You know, it seems to be in the news again. But I want to get into some of the practicalities. Talk to me about some of the areas, because I've looked into it. It looks like satellite modules are being deployed in utilities and wildlife protection and disaster recovery and personal safety. But tell me about a little bit about like what verticals these make the most sense in and why.
Yeah, so I mean, the way that I kind of look at my business is divided into two parts, right? So I have the consumer angle, which is, obviously humans and things that they're wearing typically. So, we do a lot of partnerships with outdoor companies that are creating safety service devices, right? So, safety of life, when I kind of go outside and I need to communicate. So that's a big part of the business, and we definitely focus on that. The other side is completely different, and it's the industrial, what I call the industrial IoT side of the business. And that's going to be more of kind of what you're talking about in terms of utilities and tracking actual assets and things, right? And so a lot of the markets that we tend to chase tend to be some of the same markets that are in the cellular connectivity space. But some of that are kind of more reliant on satellite connectivity tend to be things in security. So telematics, for example, equipment or goods that are being traversed over certain geographies need to have additional coverage. And so that's a pretty big one for us. Oil and gas is another one. There's vast expanses of Earth that are not covered by cellular technology, and that's critical infrastructure that needs to be kind of covered. And so those tend to be some of the more important verticals, but it certainly manages anywhere from traditional IoT on land. We obviously are a global network, and so we do a lot of things from an aviation perspective in terms of tracking those things. And then, from a maritime perspective, we have a lot of devices that are covering scientific endeavors or just kind of vessel monitoring and fishing. So it kind of runs the gamut.
Okay. Now, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about, and I am by no means a chip expert, but as I sort of prepped and read for this, I'm getting the sense that some of the new deployments in the chips and the communication that are kind of shifting the way we think about workloads at the edge. Particularly you've launched a new module, and there's then the ability to do different kind of things with edge processing versus cloud processing. Give me a little bit of a sense of like what those of us that may not be familiar with this space need to know about what's happening.
Yeah, I'd say that satellite was actually kind of one of the first kind of in industries or technologies that really did leverage kind of edge computing and AI. And that's primarily because it is somewhat more expensive to send data over the satellite link as opposed to cellular, right? And so customers and partners are always looking for ways to optimize the amount of data that they're sending over that link. And so the use of edge computing and being able to make decisions at the edge has always been something employed by people that are integrating satellite for that very reason. And so I'd like to say that IoT users, specifically those in satellite, have been kind of at the forefront of edge computing and only, putting over the network kind of the most critical data, what's actually needed to make a decision. And so that's just getting better over time, right? We have new capabilities, new technologies, AI is being integrated into, a variety of different products. And so we just continue to kind of latch on to that and really just drive it through our partners. And so it is very integral to satellite. I see that being, a growth area in this industry in general. But the use of AI is certainly important, and it is a cost savings mechanism, in its truest form, and being able to optimize that data before it's sent over the link.
I'm going to put a pin in AI. I knew we'd get to that in a moment, but I actually want to get a little, besides the AI use case,
Yep.
that leading thought on the use of edge computing is kind of where I was most interested first. Tell me a little bit, as somebody who's leading the pack on the way that's done, as for those of us that have leaned heavily into cloud, what kind of lessons have you learned from the advancements of edge computing that we can take to broader computing, particularly for those of us that have really heavily embraced the cloud?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is really kind of the data sets that we're working with. I mean, I think that's a big point in terms of kind of the edge computing that our partners are doing. It tends to be very limited, but it's also a lot of shared information. So a lot of the things that we're working on are environmental applications, right? And so they're sharing a lot of data as it relates to weather, wind speed, and a lot of those things kind of around early detection of, fire incidents potentially, but also being able to react to natural disasters. And so what we've seen a lot is being able to leverage some of that public available data into some of these systems, and specifically around weather, and specifically around the environmental side of sensing, right? And so that's really where we see the benefits of edge kind of taking off, and also being able to leverage data that's readily available to be used in other applications. And so I think that's a key aspect of how our customers are leveraging kind of edge computing and some of that information that's readily available, not necessarily generated by their devices.
Now, for those of us that have been around a little while and have the gray hairs to show it, right, I could make an argument that there's this cyclical move between centralized computing and then distributed computing, right? And in some way, if you think about edge computing being the latest version of client server, I could say thematically it's the same kind of thing. Like, tell me a little bit how much that's true and how much it's actually different with what we're doing now with edge computing.
So I think, for the most part, it's true. I mean, we do see kind of a lot of the compute power putting on the edge, but it does come back, as you mentioned. I think we see applications that truly do rely on some of that edge computing, but that's just a portion of their overall application, right? So maybe we're just sensing nodes on a particular utility environment, but that's feeding into a larger system that is then taking all that data from all of the nodes. And so I think we'll continue to see that very cyclical approach that you mentioned, Dave, in terms of having applications that are both kind of hardcore driving at the edge, but also feeding into larger systems that are helping drive larger systems or larger applications. And so, yeah, I tend to agree with that statement 100%.
We'll be right back after this message. This episode's supported by FlexPoint. Hey, MSPs, tired of chasing payments and stuck in manual billing chaos? FlexPoint offers a purpose-built managed service provider payment platform with features like automated accounts receivable, branded client portals, same-day ACH powered by artificial intelligence, and seamless integration with popular PSA tools and accounting systems. With custom auto-pay rules, passwordless secure checkout, and one-click financing, providers process invoices up to 95% faster, eliminate reconciliation headaches, and unlock on-demand working capital. As a result, MSPs gain reliable cash flow, reduce manual effort, and elevate their client experience without long-term contracts. To see how FlexPoint can streamline your billing operations and secure faster payments, visit getflexpoint.com/MSP-radio and request a demo today. That's FlexPoint, making payments simple and cash flow perfect. And we're back. Now, I'm going to unpin the AI conversation because I got a sense that, everyone is doing something interesting. I really like getting practical use cases of where AI is turning out to be really useful. And additionally, I'm going to, as the follow-on to that, also your definition of what that AI means, because we're all throwing it around in different meanings. So tell me a little bit about what AI means to Iridium and where you're applying it.
Yeah, so again, I'd say that, in terms of our internal operation, we apply AI and machine learning in different aspects of what we're doing operationally, and that's more about, kind of how we're running kind of the internals of the business. But I think what's more impressive and what's more important is the way in which our partners are leveraging that, because they're actually out there using the satellite network and then integrating kind of the AI or the machine learning into that. And so, one particular application that we have is around floating high air balloons or balloons at high altitude, right? And so we're doing telemetry and tracking on some of those weather balloons. And really what they're doing is they're launching a variety of flights to be able to learn certain weather patterns, certain altitudes that make the most sense. And so by virtue of getting enough of those balloons up in the air, they're building and they're amassing a knowledge base that they're able to then leverage for flights in the future, right? And so I think that's one of the ways in which our partners are using that. At the other end, we've got, fishing applications. We have fishermen that are leveraging the use of AI in, the best times, of the day to fish for particular species of fish at particular depths, right? And so that's one of the ways in which, they're not necessarily leveraging that on the satellite side, but it's part of the overall application. So they're communicating safety and catch reporting and some of those things back through the satellite link, but they're also getting information back that's providing them, more insights on the best times of day to fish and, what to use and when to use it. And so it really does kind of get leveraged across a variety of applications. We also see it in monitoring and security and from a game cam perspective, for example, right? These cameras that are out in the field, they're able to make determinations on kind of what they're seeing without actually processing the image. And then send that information back to the user in terms of, hey, we just had, XYZ animal cross in front of our path. We think it's this. It came by, several times in one day. And we do that, at the conservation level, right? We're at, a variety of applications that are monitoring, a variety of species that are, somewhat compromised. And so I think, from that perspective, we're providing a lot of insights into that market, but also gaining a lot at the same time.
Can I say that this is the best use of phishing, considering how much cybersecurity I end up having to talk about, and to be a PH phishing, that I actually get to hear about F phishing for the first time on the show. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Actual fishing in the ocean. Yes.
Right, actual fishing in the ocean. But actually, what really I want to build on that, because you brought up some very specific implementations that by literally being able to say it's not a technical thing, we're talking about actual stuff that's happening in the field. One of the things that's interesting to me about satellite connectivity is it does remain costlier than straight cellular. So I think it would be really interesting to understand how you help customers and plus your partners implementing it through the justification of return on investment there, because there's got to be some measuring skill that you've put forth to the business case. Walk me through how you do that work.
Yeah, so a lot of it is really around kind of operational efficiency, right? I mean, that's really kind of the mantra in terms of whatever market we go after. It's really about how can we make your operation better, and typically the way that we do that is through improving efficiency in your operation. So, in practical terms, it's about knowing kind of where all your stuff is all the time, no matter whether it's inside of threshold coverage or not. We kind of help fill those gaps. Alternatively, though, it is really for continuity in applications that really do require 100% uptime, right? So we are complementary to a lot of cellular devices in most of the environments that we operate in, right? It's really there. The satellite link is there for that backup and that continuity. And so in the event that the cellular network is unavailable, that data needs to get out. And so that's typically where we're going to be kind of most successful and have kind of the most success in terms of deploying satellite. Satellite is never an option for those that need it, right? It's if it's a nice to have, you don't necessarily want it. Satellite is something that it's a requirement typically, and so and it's for those same reasons that I mentioned, right? It's either for continuity of service, or it's because we're operating in hybrid environments, and so I think that's really kind of the benefit of what we provide from a satellite perspective. But it really is about being able to ensure that no matter where you are, no matter where your asset travels to, you're going to be able to get that data from that device.
The other thing that was really interesting as I was preparing to have this conversation was to learn how much Iridium is leaning into open source with some of the way that you're doing that. And I was really curious to know, how does that change your go-to-market strategy and the way you're looking at your ecosystem partnerships?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I mean, we really tend to go after the developer. That's kind of the first persona that we attract or that we try to go after is really the developer, because that's the person that is ultimately evangelizing that technology throughout their organization. And so we want to be most friendly to the person that's picking up that kit and playing around with Iridium for the first time. And so the open sourceness of what we're trying to do, or at least the standardization, kind of starts there. So with this new module that we created, this 9704, we went down the path of creating a development environment that was highly leveraged on Arduino Maker Series, right? So something that is readily available, something that a lot of folks have picked up and played with, whether in college or in high school or, post grad work. Somebody that's a technologist likely knows something about Arduino. We've also added capability to add other things like Adafruit and other capabilities to that product. And so it really does kind of open the world up for the developer. And so we start there in terms of kind of the open source. On the other side of the house, in terms of the network, we're totally moving towards kind of a standards-based approach with our shift to NTN and specifically 3GPP NB-IoT. And so we're taking two bands from the network and we're converting that over into a standards-based approach. And so we'll be able to offer our customers a variety of satellite technologies, whether it's a dedicated device using proprietary Iridium satellite connectivity, or it's a device that may be bouncing in and out of coverage zones, roaming onto other cellular networks. We're going to have options for both customers depending on what you need. And so we're totally embracing that end of it. And we believe there's importance there, but we also are also big believers in the proprietary side. And for customers that really just need a satellite dedicated link and dedicated equipment for that, we're going to provide that as well. So we're really just kind of opening our portfolio to be able to handle both standard and proprietary kind of waveforms on the network. So bring your own device is kind of the mantra that we're going to start picking up here pretty soon.
Gotcha. So I want to make sure listeners don't miss something in there. Tell me a little bit more about what an NTN is and how it fits in.
Yeah, so NTN is non-terrestrial networks. It's kind of the moniker for everything that's on there. And really the basis or the thesis there is that you'll be able to take your device that's currently operating on a cellular network, and you can seamlessly transition and operate on a satellite network. And that seamless transition should be obfuscated from the user, right? You as a user shouldn't care or know what network you're operating on, just the fact that you're able to get connectivity. And so Iridium will be part of that ecosystem in terms of providing standardized hardware with technology in space, right? So being able to connect those devices without you, the user, having to do much of anything other than upgrade your phone to the latest version that has, the capability of speaking to satellites now. And so that's what we talk about from 3GPP NTN. And specifically what we're doing is we're adhering to that 3GPP consortia and following their protocols around NB-IoT. And so we're developing a standards-based IoT based on the 3GPP platform and committee.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Now, as we sort of wrap up our time together, I love getting a little bit of a sense, particularly from somebody who comes from a different section of the technology sector than many of my listeners might be, and give me a little bit of a sense of what emerging trends you're watching over the next, say, 6, 12, 18-month time frame.
Yeah, and I think we touched on a lot of them on today's call, actually, Dave. I think so. AI, obviously, that's top of everybody's mind. We will continue to foster that. And make sure that that we're exposing it to our partners and that we're bringing back those stories of our partners that are actually, really leveraging AI. And so that's something that we're going to continue to focus on, the machine learning aspect of it as well, because that's a big part of it. The NTN space is certainly one to watch, right? That's going to change the way that consumers and your listeners are going to be able to leverage satellite, right? They're going to be able to use it in ways that they never thought. And in a lot of cases, they're going to be using it without even knowing that they're on a satellite link in general. And so that NTN space, the evolution of the industry that I work in, it's been solid state for many years, but now we've got a lot of new entrants, a lot of exciting technology coming to play. People launching, big rockets with big satellites on them. And so it really is complementary, the types of service that we offer. Those services tend to be broadband, higher bandwidth, but that's the space that I'm kind of most interested in, is kind of the standardization of satellite and getting it into kind of everybody's hands. And not really having to think about it or do anything special to do it.
Ian Itz is the executive director of the IoT line of business at Iridium Communications. He leads product strategy, market expansion, and subscriber growth in satellite-powered IoT, overseeing over a decade of industry experience and driving over 11% CAGR in service revenue since joining Iridium in October of 2012. Ian, if people have more questions, want to get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
Come to our website, iridium.com. There's a way to reach out and get us there. If not, I'm on LinkedIn. Send me a direct message, get me there. But we're pretty accessible. and we should be pretty easy to find. But yeah, Dave, thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity. I really enjoyed the chance to speak with you.
Oh, likewise. I learned a ton about satellite that I don't know enough about, so I appreciate learning it. Thanks a lot.
Right on. Thank you.
The Business of Tech is written and produced by me, Dave Sobel, under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you've subscribed or followed on your favorite platform. It's free and helps directly. Give us a review, too. If you want to support the show, visit patreon.com/MSPradio and you'll get access to content early. Or buy our Why Do We Care merch at businessof.tech. Have a question you want answered? We take listener questions, send them in, ideally as a voice memo or video to question@mspradio.com. I answer listener questions live on our Wednesday live show on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you've got a comment or a thought on a story, put it in the comments if you're on YouTube, or reach out on LinkedIn if you're listening to the podcast. And if you want to advertise on the show, visit mspradio.com/engage. Once again, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you again on our next episode.
Part of the MSP Radio Network.